So our next guest, we're going to talk about important subjects. So our next guest who joins us is Ashley James, presenter, broadcaster, and a powerful voice for women. She's going to tell us more about pregnancy side effects and raise some awareness on the area. So Ashley, welcome to the show. Great to have you on board. Can you give us
thanks so much for having me.
No, it's great to speak to you. And could you give us a bit of a rundown in the what are the unwanted side effects that we can raise, that you can help raise awareness for?
Yeah, so I think I've got two kids, so I've been pregnant twice, and I had very different experiences and side effects for both. But lots of the lesser known side effects are piles, are strong sense of smell. I think lots of people kind of know the common side effects like growing bump and cravings, but yeah, a lot less is known about the fact that you could experience like something like piles, because obviously you have a baby on your tummy, like loaded onto your pelvic floor. So it can be obviously quite a shock and quite embarrassing if you're not aware of that. But also something that happened to me that I was completely unaware of is that your feet can also change. So I went from size 5 to a size 6, and they never actually went back down. So yeah, there's lots of quite interesting side effects, but obviously some of them more uncomfortable than others, like the metal taste and pregnancy insomnia and piles.
Yeah, I mean, listen to you sort of like speak there, Ashley. I suppose the concern could be, and I'm not medically qualified, but any stretch of the imagination, but I'm thinking there you sort of mentioned a variety of different symptoms, and obviously, there's going to be no two pregnancies the same, as you've mentioned there. But the other concern would be for people kind of knowing if it's a side effect or if it could be something else. So, I mean, what are your sort of thoughts on that? Obviously, it's important that people do get checked out, I would think, by a GP, and maybe not just put it down to side effect, that, it could be something else. What's your sort of take on that?
Yeah, I think I think this is part of the problem, and what the findings from the study that Anusol did is that over half of women said they felt poorly informed about these like lesser known pregnancy challenges and potential symptoms. And I think if there was more education and awareness, things would be less scary and come less as a shock. And if it's something like as uncomfortable as piles, for some reason, whether it's piles or incontinence or prolapse or any of the very normal common things that women can experience, not just in pregnancy, but also after childbirth, postnatally, as they recover, that so many of these topics are sort of kind of shrouded in stigma and taboo. So it can be very difficult and embarrassing to talk about these things. And also because of the lack of awareness, people might not even know that they can go and seek help. But I would say if anyone is worried about anything, then definitely speak to your doctor and midwife. And I think this isn't just a conversation that we should be having to women, to pregnant women. This should be a conversation that we're having with everyone, because if your partner or your friend or your sister, your daughter, whoever it might be, might get pregnant, it's kind of having an awareness so that you can better support them. And I think there's this idea that everybody should enjoy their pregnancy, and lots of people will feel incredibly grateful to be pregnant, but also still find it really challenging, whether that's because of sickness or piles, or I had something called pelvic girdle pain in the end with my first as well. And it's okay if you don't enjoy your pregnancy. And I think we shouldn't be, telling women who are struggling or suffering that they should be enjoying it, because it can be really difficult. But just know that, you can speak to your GP and midwife about anything. And if you're specifically experiencing discomfort with piles, I think the really challenging thing about pregnancy, and then if you go on to breastfeed, is not knowing what products are suitable, and it can be really confusing. So Anusol do a natural cream, so 95% of the ingredients are natural, and it helps to soothe symptoms like itching or burning, and you can use that in pregnancy and during breastfeeding as well.
And in terms of the symptoms themselves, actually, were there specific times that certain symptoms would sort of, did you have like like constant symptoms all the way throughout the pregnancy, or did you have like ones that came and went type thing? And I know obviously it's probably too many to mention, but were there any sort of ones that maybe people listening can relate to, and it just builds that bit of awareness, really?
Yeah, I mean, I think it will be different for everyone, and my first was so different to my second. But obviously, I think I mentioned that my feet grew, so they never went back down to a 5. So I'm now in a size 6. My sense of smell was really heightened during both. I had quite weird but weirdly healthy cravings like cherry tomatoes for my first pregnancy, which is much better than some other cravings that you hear about. But yeah, I think, whether they come and go, there's something called like, is it called like lightning crotch, where you can suddenly get like, it's almost like like a lightning sensation that can come and go, or cramps. I would experience that intermittently. But I think for whether it's something that you're feeling all the time, or whether it's something that comes and goes, just know that you can speak to doctors, speak to midwives. Please don't feel embarrassed, and please know that so many of these lesser known physical changes are very normal.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I mean, the feet sort of growth, that's obviously an interesting one. No, I mean, I'm sure there's people listening in, and how did you sort of notice yourself? Was it just like, just generally like putting shoes on, or in terms of the feet?
In regards to
Yeah,
my feet, yeah, it was
yeah,
just that
yeah.
my shoes didn't fit anymore. So, because I had pelvic girdle pain, I did have to get some very sensible trainers, which actually is great because now those kind of sensible trainers are in fashion. But yeah, I had to get some very sensible shoes, and I was very much looking forward to getting back into my inappropriate footwear after pregnancy, but it sadly never happened. So I've had to slowly invest in new footwear, which I was not expecting.
No, absolutely. And from the perspective of, obviously, you sort of you went through your pregnancies. People will go through pregnancy. You mentioned there, people, whether it's a colleague at work or whether it's sort of like, family, and what can sort of people do to be more aware? Because obviously some of the symptoms you mentioned there, I think many people probably might be sort of familiar with, the cravings, that sort of stuff. But you've also mentioned other symptoms that many people, including myself, wouldn't have been aware of. But what can people be more aware of, Ashley, if someone is going through pregnancy at work, or a family member, whether it be, a partner, or a daughter, or what's some of the things that people can be aware of to make life more, what would say, more easy, but more comfortable?
Yeah, I think it's just knowing that they might not be loving it. They might not be loving every second, or they might be really struggling. So just like letting them know that you're there, or that if there's anything they need to, like, that they wanted to talk about, that you're there. But also I think being really mindful, around not assuming that they're enjoying their pregnancy. Or I think, even with like postnatal recovery, there's so much more that could be done. I think the topic of conversation is still very much around baby weight and bouncing back, and so many of the things that we can experience whilst recovering, things such as piles or prolapses or incontinence, that can have such a knock-on impact to someone's confidence, that even though it's a physical symptom, obviously it's very hard to feel confident and happy in your body when you're experiencing a lot of these symptoms. So I think it's just being mindful to not add to the pressure around like body image, and just allowing people like the time and patience to recover. And I think, for partners, it's just knowing that all of these things are possible, and like encouraging them, if they do experience anything, to let them know that they can talk to you, or encouraging them to not feel embarrassed, and to seek help from a doctor or midwife.
No, absolutely. And I'm guessing that there'll be people, you've mentioned there, some of the symptoms as well, who are experiencing pregnancy, may be uncomfortable about sort of speaking to someone about some of their symptoms. What message would you give to anybody, maybe if they're experiencing it for the first time, or second or third, or however many times, but they might experience, like you mentioned before, it could be different symptoms second time, or even third, whatever time round. But what would you say? Because you're obviously a powerful voice for women as well, Ashley. What message would you tell anyone who's maybe a bit uncomfortable, or a bit sort of, a bit sort of anxious about sort of speaking about their symptoms to be it their partner, to a GP, or a midwife? Is any sort of like wouldn't say words of advice, but any sort of thoughts you could give to anyone who's sort of like a bit uncomfortable to talk about their symptoms?
Uh, I would just say, don't feel embarrassed and just know that it's really normal. You're not the only one experiencing it. And hopefully, the more we talk openly about it, even me coming on here and talking about it, maybe that will make you think, oh, I actually do really need to go and get help, and I do need to get that sorted. And doctors, midwives, they see it all the time. That it's really normal for them. They're not going to judge you. Please go and seek help. And obviously, if you are experiencing the discomfort of piles and you're pregnant or you're breastfeeding, just know that you can use that Anusol natural cream, and that is suitable. And it will help soothe symptoms like itching or burning. And yeah, mainly just talk to who you're comfortable with talking to. But know that the more that we seek help, obviously the better it will be for you mentally and physically, but also the more we can kind of get rid of the unnecessary stigma and taboos, because things like piles that impacts men and women, it's really common, really normal, but not something that you have to suffer with.
No, absolutely. And is there anywhere that sort of our listeners can go? It's like signpost them to more information. Ashley, is there any way you could sort of maybe signpost them to sort of read a bit more or find out a bit
Yeah, so
more?
if you want to know anything more about what we've been talking to and to see more of the results from this survey, the key findings from the survey, then you can go to Anusol's website, which is anusol.co.uk.
Brilliant. Thanks for your time, Ashley, and have a great day. Thanks for an informative
You too.
interview. Thank you. Take care. Bye.
Thank you.